Well, hello. Didn't see you there. I'm here in my office in the Alphen building, which evidently is the most haunted place in America. Just creepy. I am bummed. This is the final installation of readings for the class, and usually this book, The Reluctant Fundamentalist, is among my favorites to discuss with students. I think it's a tremendous book, and I hope you will have opportunities to enjoy it. We will, for a moment, discuss, I will give you some of the notes on April Hamid's life, and especially on how we might think about this book, which is a little bit different. My notes indicate that Hamid is born in 1971, lives to the present still. He's born in the city Lahore, Lahore, in the Punjab province of Pakistan. It's Pakistan's second most populated city. He spent some time in his childhood in the U.S. as his father was studying at Stanford in the Bay Area, and then went back to Lahore to complete his, high school training. Returned to the U.S. at the age of 18 to study at Princeton, much like Chanjas, his protagonist. He studied under, part of the time that he studied, he was also studying under major fiction writers, including Toni Morrison. He went from there to Harvard Law School and then worked for several years as a management consultant in New York City, a very profitable job for him that allowed him 3 months off per year to write. Now he writes full-time, and he lives between, he's a dual citizen of Pakistan and the United Kingdom. He spends, I think, roughly half of his time in Pakistan and the other half banding about between Western countries, UK, London and New York City, this kind of stuff. Reluctant Fundamentalist, one of my favorite books to teach. Another that I adore of his is Exit West, which has a very, I would say, timely conceit that it's about immigration and the enclosure, like the kind of rapid speed of the world. It's got a kind of science fiction idea where these doors just start popping up on Earth, and they take people from wherever you are into a mysterious destination. So what happens is, throughout the course of the novel, mostly the movement comes from people in poor and distressed areas, and they wind up in places that are better off. We think about today, not just the immigration trouble we have, like at the kind of over the last 3 years over the our southern border, but also the literally right now. Today is March 22 as I record this for you all. Right now there are border closures across the world as people are trying to slow the spread of coronavirus. So interesting book to read if you are looking to fill some time. Let me talk for you a moment about some of the virtues of thinking about this book, The Reluctant Fundamentalist. Recall all the way back to our first lecture on world literature. There are some differences in the way that we might define the term. We might define the term as masterpieces, the texts that ask the big questions, such as the nature of the good life, the nature of human existence, the human condition, this kind of stuff. Oftentimes when we talk about masterpieces, there's a kind of implicit assumption that those are the Atlantic works from North America and Europe, which is to say has some race baggage. We might also think about the term world literature as a vast array of different kinds of texts where each text might do something to represent its culture or something like that. I think what is phenomenal about this book, is that it takes a different approach. It itself does world literature in the confines of the book, not like when it's set into a world literature course or a syllabus like the one that we have. It represents world systems. This character is involved in a kind of global finance system where he's traveling the world to do market valuations on behalf of this firm that he works for. So he travels the world in this way. But that's still kind of shallow, right? Relative to the other movies you might watch where somebody's like globe-trotting. A lot of spy movies, like James Bond movies, will have a character, you know, trotting off to exotic places. They're in doing gambling in Macau, China. They might be going to the beach in Montenegro or something like this, back and forth, like all over the world, getting to most of the continents in one film, right? That's not what Hamid does. I mean, there is some of that, right? This character moves back and forth between South Asia and the United States, and then vacations in Europe, etc. What's more interesting about this book is how it dialogues. Notice that the character, the protagonist, Changes, speaks across the table to a character who doesn't get to speak for himself. Sometimes Changes will try to repeat for the reader's sake what the stranger has to say, but he does not speak for himself. In this way, Changes is speaking not just to the character across the table, but especially to an American audience, or a North Atlantic audience of European and American, North American readers, right? That's an interesting thing. He's not just representing the world, but in the actual address of the novel, he's representing something like back and forth exchange between civilizations, cultures. So I want you to be on the lookout for how that exchange is shaped and what its meaning might be, where its frictions might be, or its stressors, or where does it succeed and when does it fail. I also want you to be on the lookout for irony, because a lot of the time when Changes is speaking about the character across the table from him, he will ironize. And again, irony, words that mean something beyond their surface value. Let's look at the bottom of page 5. Here, Changes is still getting to know the person across the table from him. I'll just read for a brief second here. Bottom of page 5. You seem worried. Do not be. This burly fellow is merely our waiter, and there's no need to reach under your jacket. I assume to grasp your wallet, as we will pay him later when we are done. Is he reaching under his jacket to grasp his wallet to pay before they've even ordered? Clearly not. And when you piece together some of the other things that Changes is observing about the man across the table from him, it's highly likely that he's actually reaching for a gun. And this produces all kinds of registers of skepticism about what's going on in this book, who this character is, Changes, what he's been up to. Why is the stranger there? This book is published in 2007. In 2007, the imagination of Americans and people from Western Europe was that Pakistan was a very dangerous place to be. So, the fact of this guy is merely the fact of his presence indicates that he might not just be some average tourist looking for, an interesting tea shop where he can, take an Instapost or whatever of a novelty setting, right? There's something going on there that's strained. It's very tense, and that tension has something to do with the character and whatever he wants, but also has something to do with the tension that Hamid supposes we feel just by virtue of the setting. It's supposed to be a very uneasy premise, having tea in Lahore, Pakistan in 2007. So, while you're thinking about literally what the plot is, what we're learning about Changes and his present and his past, think also about why this character is across the table from him in the first place, and what that might mean for the stresses of, cultural exchange between people who might be trying in a good faith way to understand each other, and they also might not be. So in this way, Reluctant Fundamentalist does some interesting work regarding like what world literature can be. And also, sidebar, there is a film. I don't really know where you can access it. It's based on The Reluctant Fundamentalist. It does not do dialogue in the same way. This address in the same way that the novel does. So if you watch the movie, that's fine. But like, you're not going to get the same kind of literary experience as Hamid does very specifically in the text. So with that, I will begin to wrap up and say a couple of things. First of all, as always, we have opportunities for Google Hangouts to talk about your drafts, for your short writing on Hamid, Sympathetic Imaginations paper, which is coming up to close out our semester, etc. I also hope that, by now, if you're watching this on the timeline of the syllabus, it is middle of April, and I hope that things are going well with your health and with your sanity, your family's sanity, as you all are, making it through this very weird time in our history. So, goodbye. I will talk to you soon, I hope. Best wishes to you and yours.